Basketball is one of the most unique sports because from very early ages, fans of the game can get to know the next generation of stars before they even begin their college careers, let alone their NBA careers. Hoop mixtapes dominate the YouTube scene, so much so that players that are currently in middle school can have their tapes hit millions of views and go viral. These young prospects are receiving more hype than ever, from earlier ages than ever, which in many ways can be a positive thing because of how it helps them build their brands from very early on, and how they can be recruited much easier than in years past. However, this new era of mixtapes also has its disadvantages, which arguably the biggest one being that a good amount of these young players that get hyped up more than likely won't be able to live up to the standards that are set for them. This brings us to the topic of today's video, where we'll be taking a look at one player in particular, being Dennis Smith Jr., who was a recipient of this kind of hype for years before his NBA career even started, yet now is struggling to come close to live up to the hype, as well as how he got to this point and why he's struggling as much as he is. Before we get started though, make sure to like the video and subscribe to the channel, as all support is very much appreciated. Now with that being said, let's begin. As I said before, Dennis Smith Jr. became a well-known player by basketball fans long before he even stepped on the big stage. In high school, he attended Trinity Christian School in North Carolina for all 4 years, also playing varsity for all 4 years as well. He came off the bench as a freshman, but once his sophomore season began, he really started to turn things up a notch, taking the starting job and immediately becoming one of the most productive players in his class. He led Trinity all the way to the state championship that season, which they won, and after the game, he was named the most valuable player. His sophomore season is when he really started to get noticed by the public as well, because the combination of his fun, flashy play style and his success on the court was perfect for the fans. After that breakout sophomore season, Smith started getting invited to and taking part in all of the national recruiting circuit events, and during his junior season, Trinity played in several of the big-time high school basketball invitational events as well. Plus, on the AAU circuit, he was playing for Team Loaded alongside fellow 5-star recruit Bam Adebayo. The well-known basketball channel Ball is Life began posting several mixtapes of his best plays, all of them garnering millions of views, because when you watched him play, you couldn't help but be mesmerized with the sheer athletic prowess that he possessed, because it was so obviously higher than anyone else's at the time. Smith Jr. would legitimately try to dunk everything he could at the basket and wasn't afraid to put anyone on a poster, so these kind of things are obviously plays that fans want to see. After his junior season, though, things took a turn for the worse. He was being recognized by almost every recruiting publication as the #1 point guard in the class and top 5 overall, but before his senior season began, he tore his ACL, causing him to miss the entire season. Obviously, serious injuries this early in a player's career will always be a red flag down the line, but with so much time to recover at such a young age, it wasn't necessarily the worst thing for him. He was still a top 10 recruit and 5-star talent, and he committed to play for North Carolina State in college. There was obviously some worry about how he would look in his first action back from a torn ACL, because there are countless examples of players struggling when they return, but honestly, DSJ looked pretty good right away, and as a whole, had a very strong freshman season. He was back to throwing down jaw-dropping highlight dunks, he was getting to his spots, and he put up some pretty good numbers across the board as well, by averaging over 18 points, 6 assists, 5 rebounds, and 2 steals per game. The problem was that NC State as a team kind of stunk, as they finished the season with a losing record and didn't even make it to March Madness. The losing was a slight deterrent for scouts when examining his game, but it wasn't going to stop him from being a lottery pick, so after the season he declared for the NBA draft, which was likely his plan from the beginning. This draft class, at least at the time, was being hyped up as one of the best point guard classes in a long time, and even though it hasn't quite panned out that way in the present, it doesn't change the fact that that was the perception at the time. Markelle Fultz was seen as a bona fide superstar, Lonzo Ball's electrifying playmaking was all the rage, and De'Aaron Fox was coming off of an incredible showing in March Madness. What scouts loved about DSJ was obviously his explosive athleticism, his scoring ability, and the fact that he would constantly put pressure on defenses with his blow-by speed. With everything in his game put together, the player that scouts compare him to were all big names, including Baron Davis, Steve Francis, and yes, even Russell Westbrook. However, with everything that the scouts loved about his game, there were also a few things that they were worried about, which, looking back on, were probably spot on. In an interview with Bleacher Report, several scouts noted that they were worried about his lack of size, his defensive effort, his lack of leadership and negative body language, and his overall motor. When it comes to effort and leadership, teams sometimes gloss over it because it's believed that they can be changed. However, if they don't change, then it can obviously lead to some problems, which I'll get into pretty soon. DSJ got drafted 9th overall in 2017 by the Mavericks, but the most notable part of that selection is that it came one spot after the Knicks, who took European point guard Frank Ntilikina over him. At the time, the Knicks were crucified for the selection, which is kind of funny and ironic to look back on for reasons that, again, I'll get into soon. His first season as a pro went down how most rookie guard seasons go when they're drafted into a rebuilding team, because it featured him filling the stat sheet, shooting the ball pretty inefficiently, and the team losing a lot of games. He did show flashes of potentially becoming a solid player, but overall his numbers were fairly empty. That very next season, they drafted Luka Doncic, and right off the bat you could tell that the Mavericks were shifting towards building around him, just 1 year after drafting Smith. DSJ became an expendable player because of this, and he eventually got traded to none other than the Knicks in exchange for Kristaps Porzingis. So now, he's playing alongside Frank Ntilikina, who Knicks fans were originally angry about the team taking ahead of him. Through his first 2 seasons, his scoring numbers didn't really change much, going from averaging about 15 in his first year to averaging about 14 in his next season. The issue, though, was that his efficiency didn't really change either. Rookie guards are expected to struggle, but after that, patience runs out quickly if improvement is not made. He shot a terrible 39% from the field and 31% from 3 as a rookie, but in his second season, those numbers only went up to 43% from the field and 32% from 3, which is still subpar. Shooting was never really a strength of his coming out of college, but his struggles in this area became worse than most thought it would be. It may have gotten glossed over because Russell Westbrook, who he was compared to, struggles to shoot threes as well. However, the issue with this logic, and honestly, the logic of anyone who even compared him to Russ in the first place, is that Westbrook is elite in several aspects of the game, and DSG was simply never close in those aspects. Westbrook's pull-up mid-range jumper has been money for years. He gets to the rim and finishes as good as anyone in the NBA, and his playmaking for others has always been near the best in the league as well. None of that can be said about Smith, and the only real comparison between the two comes in the athleticism department, which doesn't even make a difference if you don't use that athleticism correctly. Now, after everything Dennis has been through, he's gotten off to one of the roughest starts I've ever seen a player have to a season. He's currently averaging 0.8 points and shooting the ball 7% from the field while missing every 3 he's taken so far. It's gotten so bad to the point that during one of their games, Knicks fans started booing him. Meanwhile, Frank Ntilikina is now a fan favorite despite his offensive game not really developing much because he plays very hard in the minutes he's given and locks up on defense. I can't help but think that those scouts that were worried about his leadership, motor, and effort were onto something at the time, because those seem to be the exact problems with him now. He looks very visibly lacking confidence, and it's really hurting his play. With this being his 3rd season, he really needs to figure things out quickly, because after this season he's only guaranteed 1 more season on a roster until his contract expires. The market for point guards is so competitive, so if you don't produce, you're not going to be handed anything. He obviously still has time to turn things around, but with the amount of hype he generated over the years, you can't help but feel disappointed with the way things have gone so far. And with that being said, that's all I have for you today. Make sure to like the video, subscribe to the channel, and comment down below your thoughts on Dennis Smith Jr.'s situation. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you all next time.